All right, let's dive into one of the most powerful, complex, and, let's be honest, one of the most misunderstood ideas in theology. John Calvin's doctrine of divine providence. For some people, it's this huge source of comfort. For others, it's a total philosophical nightmare. So today, we're going to unpack what Calvin was actually talking about and why he thought it was the absolute key to living a life without fear.
But first, let's start with the feeling I think we all get from time to time. You just look at the world, right? You look at the news, you look at your own life, the shocking tragedies, the lucky breaks, the sheer randomness of it all. And it's so easy to wonder, is anybody or anything really in charge here? Is it all just chaos?
And this really gets to the heart of the tension. On one side, you have the world as we often see it. It looks like blind fortune, random accidents, and just senseless suffering. But on the other side, you've got Calvin's pretty radical idea that behind all of that chaos, there is a divine order, a sovereign purpose, and a hidden, but perfect, justice. It's two completely different ways of looking at the exact same events.
To explain this, Calvin uses this brilliant analogy. Think about a crazy thunderstorm. Down here on the ground, it is total chaos. You've got dark clouds, roaring thunder, scary winds. Everything just seems confused and out of control. But, as Calvin points out, way, way above all those clouds, the heavens are perfectly calm and serene. He argues that's what our lives are like. We feel like we're in the middle of the storm, but God is in that serene place, directing every single gust of wind and every flash of lightning according to his perfect plan.
Okay, so what did Calvin actually mean by this plan? What exactly is this providence that's supposed to be governing everything? Let's get a really clear definition on the table.
So here's the crucial point you have to get. For Calvin, providence is not God just sitting back with a telescope knowing what's going to happen. It's not passive. No, it's active, hands-on, moment-by-moment governance. From a tiny bird falling from a tree to the rise and fall of entire empires, nothing happens by chance. Every single event is actively steered by God's hand.
Now, to really grasp this, you have to understand a key distinction Calvin makes. He says God basically has two wills. First, there's his revealed will. That's the Bible, the laws, the stories, the teachings. He calls it a lamp for our feet, our clear guide for how we're supposed to live. But then, there's his hidden will. This is his secret, sovereign plan for how the entire universe runs, and Calvin compares this to a deep abyss. It's not for us to try and figure out, it's for us to just stand back and, reverently adore. Our job is to obey what's revealed and to trust what is hidden.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. This whole idea of a hidden, all-encompassing plan. It immediately brings up some really tough questions. I mean, if God has already decided everything that will ever happen, what does that mean for us? Are we just puppets on a string? And this is the first huge objection people have. If God has already determined the exact day I'm going to die, then why should I wear a seatbelt? Why would I go to a doctor if I'm sick? Why bother planning for the future at all? It kind of seems to make all human effort completely pointless.
But for Calvin, there is absolutely no contradiction here. He points to verses just like this one from Proverbs. And notice what it says. It doesn't say man doesn't plan his way. It says he does. We make plans, we use our brains, we take precautions. But at the end of the day, God is the one who directs the final outcome of those plans.
And this is how he squares that circle. Calvin says that God's providence is clothed with the means employed. Now, what on earth does that mean? It means our planning, our caution, our decisions, they aren't fighting against God's plan. They are the actual tools he uses to bring his plan about. He decreed both the end result and the means to get there. So your choice to go see a doctor is part of his plan to heal you.
Okay, so that handles planning, but now we get to the really, really hard one, the problem of evil. If God's plan includes absolutely everything, well, that has to include terrible things, right? Theft, murder, all of it. Doesn't that make God the author of sin?
Calvin's answer here is this incredibly sharp, almost surgical distinction, and this table helps us see it. He argues that for any single act, there can be two totally different motivations going on at the same time. Think about the crucifixion. The human actors, Judas, Pilate, the soldiers, they were all acting from evil motives, right? Greed, hatred, power. And they are 100% guilty for what they did. But God, the ultimate actor behind the scenes, was using their wicked act for the greatest good you can possibly imagine, the salvation of the world. Same act, completely different motives, and therefore completely different moral responsibility.
He tries to nail this down with a really striking analogy. Picture the sun shining down on a dead body. The heat from the sun's rays makes the corpse decompose and, stink. But does that mean the sunbeams themselves stink? No, of course not. The rays are pure. The corruption was already in the corpse. In the same way, Calvin says, God's power, his providence, can shine on a sinful human heart, and the evil that comes out is from the corruption of that heart, not from God himself.
So, we've wrestled with the mechanics and the tough questions. But that brings us to the most important part of all. Why? Why did Calvin think this difficult doctrine was so absolutely vital? What's the whole point of it?
And the answer is surprisingly simple, and it's deeply human. See, for Calvin, this was never just some abstract theological puzzle. He believed that not understanding providence, living your life as if you're just at the mercy of blind chance, is the single greatest misery a person could ever experience.
And he paints this really vivid picture of that misery. Without providence, you are surrounded by 1,000 daggers. Every shadow could be hiding a robber. Every meal could have poison in it. Your house could collapse at any moment. Your ship could sink. Life becomes, as he puts it, just this constant state of anxiety, with a sword hanging over your neck at all times, a life of crippling, constant fear. But the doctrine of providence, he argues, is the answer to all that fear. It's not meant to be a cage of fatalism. It's meant to be a fortress. And this is the great reversal, you see. What looks like a doctrine of rigid, ironclad control is, for Calvin, the source of the ultimate freedom, the freedom from worry. To know that a loving, all-powerful Father is governing every single tiny detail for your ultimate good, well, he calls that the highest blessedness. He leans really heavily on promises like this one from the Psalms. The world is full of traps and terrors, for sure, but the believer is safe, protected under the wings of a God who isn't just powerful, but who is their personal protector. And he says this knowledge produces 3 really practical results in your life. He calls them sweet fruits. First, you get gratitude. Every good thing that happens to you is a gift. It's not just luck. Second, you get patience. You can endure hardship peacefully, knowing it serves a higher purpose. Just like when Joseph told his brothers, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. And finally, you get freedom. Real freedom from anxiety about the future, because it's a story that's already been written by a good author. And this provides one final layer of security. Even the most evil, chaotic forces in the world are not just running wild. Calvin uses this image of God holding them as by a bridle. They can thrash around, they can make a lot of noise, but they cannot move 1 inch further than God permits. For the person who trusts in this, it means that even your worst enemy is ultimately on a divine leash. So, we're left with this fascinating tension, aren't we? Is Calvin's doctrine of providence this cold, ironclad system of control that just crushes human freedom? Or is it what he passionately argued it was? The only real foundation for peace in a chaotic world, the ultimate source of human comfort, and the only true fortress against fear? The answer, I guess, depends entirely on where you're standing when you look out at the storm.